Hi class, today we're going to go over the notes from our CO7 notes. We already completed page 1. I am going to be putting out some short videos for page 2 over the constructions. What I want to look at today is going to be starting on page 3, where we are listing corresponding parts that are congruent. So for some of you, this may be a repeat, but I'm going to go ahead and just start with number 5. And we're going to look at all of the angles first that are corresponding and congruent in these two triangles. And then we're going to look at all of the sides that are corresponding and congruent. So the trick to do this, as far as I'm concerned, is to really, if my triangles are two separate triangles, I don't even ever look at the triangles themselves. The only thing that I look at is this notation up here. And that's going to be super important because then I won't be misled by any, well, I mean, even if we look at these two triangles, it's just really hard to tell which angle matches with which angle. Or if I look at number 6, does side AC map to DF or is it DE? These two sides are going to be very similar, so it'd be very hard for me to distinguish those sides. So I'm just going to look at my notation and let that help me. So the angles are going to be represented by the letters here. So basically I'm going to say angle C is congruent to angle J. And that's it. The first letter here in this one is congruent to the first letter here in the second triangle notation. And I'm going to keep doing that same thing for basically just continuing that same pattern over and over again until I'm done. So I'm going to going here. So I started with C and J. My next set would be A and S. So angle A corresponds to angle S. So those two are going to be congruent. And then I can do T and D as my two congruent angles for the last pair. And it really is that simple. First one here matches first one here. Second one, third one, third one. And that's it. Now I can move on to my sides. So I'm going to look at my notation here, and instead of one letter for my angles, I'm needing 2 now. So I'm going to have I need my segment bar, and then I can say CA is congruent to well, the first two letters here are CA, and then here they are JS. So I can go ahead and say that those two are going to be congruent. Again, it really is just that simple. I just need to pick the first two letters here and the first two letters here, and then CA and JS are the ones that are going to be corresponding and congruent. and I'm going to keep going. And I get AT is congruent to SD, the two last letters here and the two last letters here. And then CT is congruent to, segment CT is congruent to segment JD. First and last, first and last. So I did not look at these two triangles at all to determine these. I'm just going with the order of the notation. That notation will tell me this critical order of what angles match with which angles, and therefore which sides match with which sides. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for number 6. I encourage you to go ahead and pause your video, and then I will put up the answers here shortly. Alright, so then for my angles, the first one in this triangle and the first one in this triangle give me A and D are congruent, second two, B and F are congruent, and the last two, C and E are congruent. Then my corresponding sides are going to also be congruent, so AB is congruent to DF, BC is congruent to FE, and AC is congruent to DE. First and last, first and last. Now, to give myself some kind of a pattern to work with here, I usually do the first two for the sides. I usually do the first two, second two, or the last two and the last two, and then the outsides and the outsides. So the first two, AB, DF, the last two, BC and FE, and then the outsides, AC and DE. You don't necessarily have to go in that order, just trying to get some kind of an order so you don't miss anything, and then you are able to just quickly go through these. Again, these are just going to be using that CPCTC that we ended up discussing before, that corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. All right, so then for number 7, if triangle ADC is congruent to triangle DCB, list all pairs of corresponding congruent parts. So I'm going to go ahead and list the sides. Those follow the same rule. We are going to have to do a little bit something different for our angles. So I'm going to go ahead and get the answers up here for my sides. And just following that same pattern as before, AD is congruent to DC, DC is congruent to CB, and first and last, AC is congruent to DB. That's it for my sides. So now I need to go ahead and complete the angle congruence statements. Now these are going to be a little bit more difficult. Actually, they are going to be fairly difficult especially compared to what we were doing up here. I can't just write this letter compared to this letter anymore, because the angle D, well, it has 3 different angles there. I have an angle right here that would be at D. I have an angle right here that would be at D. And then I also have this great big angle that would be at D. So I can't just call this angle D, because which angle D would I be talking about? So I need to use, instead of just one letter, I need to use 3 letters to call whichever angle that I am talking about. So I'm going to go ahead here. I'm going to get some different colors going here so that we can have some contrast. So I'm going to use one. Oh, my yellow doesn't show up very well. I'm going to do one as blue. See if that's a little bit better. Let's get a thicker. All right, maybe not perfect, but at least we can see the distinction between the two triangles that we're looking at. I'm looking at triangle ADC and triangle DBC. So those are the ones that I ended up highlighting. DCB, triangle DCB is my green triangle, and my blue one is triangle ADC. So let me just underline those. So then what I need to do now, and I encourage you to use as much color on these as you need to help kind of make this make sense to you. So what we need to do now is we need to list off our angles that are going to be congruent. So I'm going to start with my notation looking at angle A and angle D. So angle A from the blue triangle and D from the green triangle. So angle A, I could call angle A up here, I could call DAC. So let's go ahead and do that. Angle DAC. And if I look at my notation here, I used the second letter, the first letter, the third letter. So 2, 1, 3. I could actually kind of take a little shortcut here. And what I could do is since I know that the blue triangle is going to be DAC, what I could do is compare that to the green triangle to give me 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, C, D, B. So I could say angle C, D, B. And if I look at my green triangle, angle C, D, B would be right here at the tip of my green triangle, the bottom left corner. That's probably going to be the easiest way to get these done, is to just look at which two angles are going to be corresponding, pick an order for one of your angles, and then follow that same order for the next one. So let's try this again, because I know that these ones are pretty difficult. So the next two I'm going to look at are angle D from the blue triangle and angle C from the green triangle. So angle D from the blue triangle is the big angle here. Angle D from the blue triangle. So I'm going to say that could be ADC. So I'm going to say angle ADC. And that is going to be congruent to angle, well, ADC is just letters 1, 2, 3. So I can just read off letters DCB here. DCB here. Congruence symbol. And that's it. All right, let's try the last two. So I have a C and a B here. Why don't you guys go ahead and pause the video and see if you can come up with an order for angle C and angle B. So angle C is going to be this angle right here. In my blue triangle, it's going to be the angle here in this corner. So I want to get the blue triangle, so I'm looking, let's see if I can. highlight that in blue. I'm talking about that angle right there for my angle C because it's for my blue triangle. So I could call that angle DCA. Angle DCA. And once I pick the order for one triangle, or for one angle, DCA, that was 2, 3, 1. I can do the same sequence for my second angle, CBD. CBD. Now, I know it kind of feels like we're just splitting hairs, but really that notation, practicing the notation and the order of the notation is really important to getting to understand what the notation is telling us. The notation is telling us the order, which angles match which angles, which sides match which sides. So we have to be consistent. So whatever I pick for the order of one angle, I need to pick for the order of the second angle. Keeping in mind, inside here, I have some special notation for my triangle here. I have A, D, C as my middle letters being my vertices of those angles. And then for the second triangle, I have angles D, C, and B hidden in there. So the order that we were using before, where I was just matching A to D and D to C and C to B, is kind of still there. We just needed to use more letters because we had overlapping triangles, which was making our lives a little bit difficult here. So we're going to go ahead and try this again with question number 8. Again, I want you to pause the video and see if you can try this on your own, and I will present the answer momentarily. All right, so all of my angles are listed and all of my sides are listed. What I want you guys to focus on, because yours might be in a little bit different order than mine, I want you guys to focus on the fact that your middle letters have to be the same. So wherever your A was over here, you need to have a D in the middle over here. And then if you put your B and C in an order, in the other order, so let's say you started with angle CAB, then over here would be CDE. So you just need to make sure that your order over here matches the order over here. And then for sides, I'm just using that same pattern as we did with the last 3 problems. So the first 2, A and C, match the first 2 over here, D and C. Second 2, C and B, match the second 2, C and E. So if you have any questions on those, please go ahead and ask during our Google Meet or in class. For problems 9 through 14, we're going to go ahead and, if possible, I want you to write a congruence statement. This is going to be using those triangle congruence theorems that we learned with our constructions here. So we are going to be constructing triangles using angle, side, angle, using side, angle, side, or side, 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 or that's what we did. And we found that those were going to be sufficient to say these, if I just construct this out of using the 3 sides, I will end up with a congruent figure. So side, side, side is sufficient to produce congruent figures. Side, angle, side is also sufficient to show congruent figures. And then angle, side, angle is another way to show congruent figures. So we are going to be applying those three that I have up there. Let me go ahead and repeat them here. So the three congruence theorems that we have are going to be side, 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 right angle, side, or angle, side, angle. Those are going to be the three ones that we're going to be trying to look out for. Do I have side, 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 side angle, side, or angle, side, angle showing up in my diagram? So if I do, then I can write a congruence statement following that same order, letter, importance that we were just going over in the last page. Then I want to support my answer using one of these theorems. If they are not congruent, then I'll need to show what else I need. So let's go ahead and get started. So again, I want to see, does this triangle represent side, 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 side angle, side, or angle, side, angle? So here I am showing that these two sides, AB and DF are congruent. BC and FE are congruent. And then the two angles B and F are also congruent. So that would be a side, an included angle, and another side. So I can say that it is possible to write a congruence statement, so I want to go ahead and do that. So I can say triangle and say triangle ABC is congruent to, I want to start with the side with 3 because that's where I started over here, is congruent to DFE. And that is my congruent statement. I used order, which was important. I needed the, oh, I put that congruent sign in the wrong spot. It was really important that I kept the correct order for the letters. So I started with A, B, then C over here. So then I needed to go to A's corresponding angle over here. A maps to D, B to F, C to E, and that's the order that I stayed in, A, B, C, and then D, F, E. So really, it doesn't matter what you do for the order for your first one, as long as your second one matches whatever it is you decided to do for your first one. So that's my congruence statement for this one. And then I can say, we wanted to write a congruence statement if possible. If they are congruent, I needed to support my answer. And I can say that that is, that those two are congruent by side, angle, side. That's it. So let's go ahead and try number 10, and then I'm going to leave you guys to try to practice these on your own. So I want to try to see, is one of these three congruence statements represented here? And I would say yes, side, side, side is, because I have three sets of matching sides. So I can say that triangle QRS, just picking an order for my first one, is going to be congruent to triangle. Now I need to figure out which angle order I need to go in. So Q is right in between the 1 and the 2, so I need to go to the X first. Then came R, and that was right in between the 1 tick mark and the 3. So between 1 tick mark and 3, that's my Y. and then between the 2 and the 3 tick marks is my S. So then that would be my W here. And then I need to say that they are, in fact, congruent. And then the reasoning for that, or the support, would be by side, side, side. So I want you guys to go ahead and try numbers 11 through 14 on your own, and then we will talk about the rest of these during our Google Meet. Have a great afternoon.